Hello and welcome back to Sterling Armory's Oakeshott Typology. Make sure that music's not too loud. If you are new to our series here, this is a series of videos about the Oakeshott Typology, which is about a medieval categorization of medieval sword blades. And we're on episode 15 now, so we're coming a long way. Episodes 1 through 1 through 12 was all the different blade types. And the last two episodes we did were on guard types. So now we're going into pommel types, and there's a lot of different pommels. So we're going to take our time going through those. Today's going to be a pretty short episode because I'm breaking the pommel types down into basically there's a group of each types of pommels. So today we're going to be and if you want to learn more, please go back. The series is all lumped together on our Facebook page. So if you go to Sterling Armory, obviously you're here if you're watching this, and you go to our series. So there should be videos and then series. You click on the series tab, you go to the Oakeshott Typology series, and you can see every video there. I had a couple questions on that last week, so that's how you find them. And real quick, so we are going off of, there's two books. There's Swords in the Age of Chivalry by Ewart Oakeshott, and that's the main one we're using for guards and pommels and everything non-blade related. And he basically walks through each one and goes through all that. And we're going to be doing a little bit of discussion right out of the book. The other book he did is Records of the Medieval Sword. So if you want to see some examples, actual historical examples of what we're talking about, whether it's swords, guards, blades, pommels, anything, most of the records book is actual images of historical pieces. And I always forget, I've forgotten, apologies to the guys because I keep forgetting this. The My Armory website does a really good documentation of all of this, including the pommel types. So if you were to go into My Armory and to their featured content, I believe they do pommels. Actually, I'm actually now second guessing myself if they do or not. But yeah, I think they do the guards and the pommels as well as the blade types. So you probably find all this information there, although it's been a while since I've looked at that for this. So if I'm wrong, please correct me if I'm in the comments, but I'm pretty sure they have it there. So real quick, chapter 3 in Oakeshott's first book is pommel types or pommel forms. And he's quick to say that there's a lot of different pommel forms. So there's 35 basic types of pommels that he's going to discuss here, but the decorations that don't affect form he doesn't really cover. So it's really 35 different main types of pommels, and these are split apart into like an alpha numeric, or not alphabet, just in the alphabet. So they go from A all the way up to T, I think, or U. I don't remember the last one. Today we're just covering what he spends a lot of time on in the book, by the way, is the first groups of pommels that he really looks into, and think of it as a chronological order. So everything from about 950 AD all the way up to 1250, I think is what he calls it out as. But basically all the pommels that you'll only find on type 10 blades, 11, 12, and 13. By the time you get to type 14 blades, so after 1250-ish, these pommels are pretty much gone. But before 1250, these pommels were actually more common than wheel pommels, which most people think are the most common medieval pommels. And they're so common, yet I think he writes about this, and I agree with him, that brazelnut pommels, which we're covering, are they're not very well known. So there's a lot of different forms of brazelnut pommels, and we're going to be going through what he calls type A through type F, which cover the different types of brazelnut pommels. So, and I got to admit, I've made one or two of these in my time making blades. I don't say I don't like making them. They're actually quite fun to make, but I usually don't make them because a lot of people don't want them. So I don't know if that's true. I guess my personal customer base does not request them that often. I've only had, one or two, I think, that I've made in my time. And I don't have any images of ones that I've actually made. But let's pull up the actual pommels here. So we'll start with, again, starting with the alphabet, we'll start with A. So if what we're looking at there on the screen is Type A, that is the most classic brazen nut pommel. So if you're familiar with any blades kind of in the Type 10 area that are post-Viking, or roughly like later Viking, early medieval time period, these types of pommels are the most common. And this is the most basic form of them, probably the most common form of them, which is like a long, looks like a boat, I think. I always called it a boat pommel when I was a kid. But it's called a brazen nut pommel. So let's actually dive into his words and see how he describes it. And by the way, on these forms of pommels, because they're in that gap between the Viking Age and the medieval time period, he actually calls back to the Peterson typology a lot. Because these pommels are also in that prior typology. So real quick, what he's calling out is, so Type A, he says, with the development of the X is a pommel in the Peterson typology. It's one of the last ones. With the ends extended to form a very wide pommel, often as much as 4 inches across. So that pommel can be quite wide. The earliest dated examples clearly shown are from about 1,000, or a little before 1,000 AD, and it's probably remained the most popular type until 1150. So that's what he's saying for Type A. So not too much of a description there, but it's basically a wide brazen nut pommel that looks like, in my opinion, looks like a boat. So that is Type A. Let's go on to Type B. So Type B, there's two. So Type B, in his words, in Oakeshott's words, it's a bulkier and shorter and rounder than Type A. And it was never very common. It seems mostly to be found in swords on which evidence such as manuscripts or other things are showing it. So it's more prevalent in artwork, I think, than surviving examples. At least that we're aware of. So, and then Type B1, so that's Type B. Type B1 bears a resemblance to B, but with the straight edge lower. So good examples are in the Tower of London, which I wish I had an image of that blade, but I have seen that blade, but I don't actually have my own photograph of that. So yeah, that is B and B1. So basically, if you were to take Type A, squish it, make it thicker and more round, that is Type B. And if you flatten out the grip side, that is B1. So as much as I haven't done Type A pommels, I think I've only done one, and I did the B1 version of this at one point. I think Warbear in our group also, he's done a B1 a few times on some Viking style blades. Okay, so that is Type B. So let's go on to C. C is where they start getting a little funky. So here's Type C. So this is another, I called this one the hat. What does he call this one? I forgot what he calls this. So Type C, he says the pommel found in the Viking swords of Type 9, he calls it the cocked hat, yeah, which makes sense. And is the immediate ancestor of C, which is similar hat shape, but taller in the crown, and now made in one piece. So basically he's saying this is very similar to the old Viking two-piece pommels, but it's made now as a single piece. So yeah, I call that the hat pommel, but that is Type C. I've never made one of those. I have made the two-piece version. I have not made that version myself, though. So that is Type C. Again, also very common, up to about 1150. Okay, so let's jump over to Pommels D now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we're on D. Again, looks very similar to C. So just like Type B was to Type A, Type D is a similar version of Type C. So he says it's a stouter, bulkier version of C. Currently, it's most frequently found in sculptures and paintings between 1225 and 1275, and swords dating of that time period. So that is Type D. Again, it's there's a little switch between what I would call, again, going back to my child terminology here, but at some point, this turns from the hat pommel into the mushroom pommel, and that kind of floats in between. I probably would call that a mushroom pommel when I was a kid, but now that is Type D. It's still technically a hat pommel. Okay, so let's keep going, and you can see the slow evolution of these pommels, which is pretty neat if you were to look at these very quickly, and we might do that real quick. But So type E. So again, it's similar to D, but now instead of having the bulb in the middle, now it's just straight lines up to the edges. So that is a type D. I have made one of these before. Actually, these are quite interesting because I found, I'm not sure why, but I found this type of pommel very comfortable in very short single hand blades. Although this pommel is found on blades with longer hilts as well. But yeah, so that is a type E. So now we're going to go from type E to the last one in this group. So this is the last of the brazelnut family pommels, which is type F. So notice the thickness now is reduced to pretty much very flat, and then the angled points at the bottom have now, or excuse me, at the top have now stretched out. So he's saying it is a more angular form of E. And this one seems to have been popular from about 1150 all the way up to 1275. So end swords of that time period. And he says sometimes it has a pronounced midrib in that as well. So usually if the blade has a pronounced midrib anywhere, then the pommel also kind of matches with it. Okay, so that is the type or the first sets of pommels and Oakeshott's forms of pommels. But real quick, let's go back to at least a few back. So when we start with A, again, you notice that brazelnut pommel shape. And if you think of, this isn't the reality of it, but if you think of the end goal as a round pommel, even though that's not really true, but if you think of it that way, and you watch the evolution from the brazelnut, and we'll go through here, how the pommel tends to squish and then get taller or fatter, and then slowly is morphing towards more of a round pommel. So real quick, so A, B, C, D, especially from C on. So C, D, E, and now F. And you can see that pommel slowly moving towards a wheel-shaped pommel, although it's not there yet. So yeah, those are the first group of pommels. And I apologize, I don't have any actual examples to show. I don't make these that often. If I do get one made, though, I'll probably post a ton of pictures of it on Facebook. So that is that. Our next group of pommels, we move into, I believe it's the tea cozy shaped ones, if I remember correctly. I already closed the book, but I'll go back and check. But yeah, we'll be doing the next. So it'll be so G through I think it's another 6 if I remember correctly. But yeah, and then we'll be going all the way through all 35 pommel types. So this should be fun. If you have one of those that you like, let me know in the comments below, or let us know here or on Facebook. And again, if you're new to the channel, at Sterling Armory, we're sword makers, but we also love talking about all sorts of history stuff and fantasy and film stuff as well. This particular series is following the more historical side. And if you follow our Sword Talk podcast, that's where we talk about everything. So hope to catch you guys in the next video, and thanks for watching.